Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Bull Central. So, once upon a time in the history of video gaming, when a big new blockbuster movie came out, such as a new Star Wars movie, and there wasn't a bigger Star Wars movie in the history of our Star Wars sequels than the Phantom Menace. Check your history on that. They used to make a game with it. And most of those times, those tie-in games, as we called them, I think this is ancient history now, they were not usually that great. And so here is the tie-in game for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I have kind of a long history of this game. I first saw this game demoed, if you can believe it, at Star Wars Celebration #1 in Denver, Colorado in 1999. I was there, and they demoed this game there. And I saw this game, and I was like, wow, it looks just like the movie. Because it did, at the time, this looked just like the movie. Why not? I noticed when I played it at the demo at Star Wars Celebration that it was a little stiff. So lo and behold, 2 months later, the movie comes out, right? I go and buy this game, and I go and buy the Episode 1 racer game, the pod racing game, which is a better game. And I could verify that pretty quickly because indeed this is a pretty stiff version of a Jedi game. And I'm playing this on the PS5. They just released a copy of this on PS5. Not without glitches. In fact, it has all the old glitches from the original game, including complete game-breaking freezes, which is what happened to me about halfway through the play. They have included some quality of life things, like you can rewind it. You can actually rewind the game and redo parts without having to save it a ton. You can also save it at any spot, outside of the game itself. So what was once a pretty hard to play game, which I did beat, by the way, back in 1999. I did get all the way through it without those amenities included. It turns what is a hard-to-play-ish game into something that is tolerable, but man, this is a stiff monkey. This is a stiff little monkey of a game because basically it was invented with the D-pad in mind. It was invented with controlling Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon with the D-pad, and what it is if you hold down the R1 button and use the D-pad, they run. On the modern DualSense controller, PS5 controller, you can just use the left stick to run, but the right camera is not a camera stick. The right stick is not a camera stick. It's a roll stick, so it's a mess. Either way you try to control this, the modern way or the old-fashioned way, it is harder than a hairy nerf herder's bottoms trying to maneuver, let alone be a Jedi with any kind of competence. What also makes it kind of stiff is the fact that they're it's just loaded with glitches, man. It's like there's these missions where you have to have Padme follow you, or you have to have Anakin follow you, and they get hung up on all sorts of stuff. There are NPCs that don't activate. It was a laundry list, and that's kind of. You know what? That's kind of what it was like to try to get one of these tie-in games. Most of the time, they were loaded with tons of problems like that. Stuff that gaming communities nowadays, they just wouldn't tolerate it, man. If a game like this or a million other games like it came out nowadays, it would be pandemonium on the internet. But in spite of all of that, there are some things about this game that I actually still kind of appreciate. It's stiff to play, hard to play, little difficult. You can rewind it on PS5. That helps. But what I like about it is actually the saber control. So in order to block incoming blaster bolts, you actually have to hold down the attack button. And you can do spinning and pirouettes, and you can jump. And playing it as a straight action game, you've got to put aside the fact that an action game in 2024 will play like velvety smooth, and this thing just isn't that. But the action isn't bad for what it was at the time, and like I said, you can progress the whole thing. You can get the whole Episode 1 story, but then there's weird things like back in the day, they didn't hold your hand in these games. Okay, video games in general didn't hold your hand. And if you make a mistake by killing the wrong person accidentally, or you say the wrong thing accidentally, it screws your play, and that no one tells you that, and you have to just kind of suss out for yourself that you've got to reload an old save file and go back into it, you know? And then there's other weird things like, Qui-Gon. On my playthrough, this playthrough on PS5, when I got to Mos Espa, I ended up killing people, just randomly having to kill people. And then, some people were wanting to kill me for it, but Anakin seemed pretty forgiving. And that it was until I couldn't get the last little scrap of part that he needed to fix his damn pod racer to enter that damn Boonta Eve Classic. So I killed the guy for it. I killed the guy for the part, and all of a sudden Anakin says I'm a murderer, and he won't help a murderer. Ugh, these kids today. The point is that you can get some kind of raunchy outcomes from what is essentially a tie-in to Episode 1. And the other weird thing about it is they always have these levels caked in where nothing happens in the movie, so they make too much happen at that point in the plot, in the narrative of the game. So, is this a good retro video game? Not really. Is it a good Star Wars tie-in video game? Not really, considering that there were better. Like I said, the Episode 1 racer is better. And similarly, there was a tie-in game for Episode 3 that I just picked that up, by the way, for my Xbox. So I might do a retro Roundup gaming segment on that, because if I remember right, that was a much more entertaining game, the old Episode 3 game. But that being said, this was an era of Star Wars history that just will never be repeated. And if you weren't alive at the time, or if you don't remember what it was like to be a Star Wars fan, the level of excitement for Episode 1 was through the roof, regardless of the product we got. So for that, I had to show this game. It is one of my favorites, or was at the time, even though it was tough and it was hard to move the guy. Now it's kind of just a piece of nostalgia, whatever. Yeah. Okay, do me a favor, everybody. This is my newest musical release, Audiophile One. It is remastered, resequenced, remade version of my first album that I put out, I guess about 4 years ago now. I always wanted it to sound a little bit better. I always wanted it to flow a little bit better, so that's what I've done here. You can check this out. Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, even here on YouTube. That's it. That's all I gotta say. I am spent, or spint. Is that the French? No, that sounds more German. A spinta. That's the Italian. Sorry if I just offended people.